Explain to us why you decided to build a plant in South Carolina, given all that's going on in the world with trade. Why'd you pick South Carolina?
I think, first of all, I mean, with all the nervousness we have now in the business, we are very glad that we are here with the local factory. I mean, without that, we would be even more worried about the future. And we looked into various alternatives, and we came to the conclusion that it's important for us to be local in the U.S., create credibility with our partners, retailers, but of course also to come closer to consumers, to really learn about their preference, so we can build even better cars for them in the future. That was the reason.
So once you're up and running and fully operational, what percentage of the cars manufactured in this plant will likely go for the U.S. market as opposed to overseas markets, including, for that matter, China?
Yeah, I mean, starting now, we will have one model, the S60 sedan, but within 3 years' time, we will add also a new big SUV, and then we would have a capacity of around 150,000 cars, and half of that we then plan to export, and the other half would be then for the U.S. market. That means this factory also demonstrates very well a two-way fair trade system, because then we would export as many cars as we would import. So, I mean, the trade balance of the U.S. in the Volvo world would be neutral.
But are you concerned at all about this trade dispute right now with the U.S. and China? Because one of the things that's been on the table has been automobiles, not just from the U.S. side, but also from the Chinese side. Could you be in the ironic situation if China imposed tariffs on you exporting cars back to China?
It could very well be. I mean, right now there are import duties to China. I think it was a very good move some weeks ago when they lowered that to 15. Now it's back on 25 again. But we believe in open trade, but it should of course be in two ways. And I hope that we can meet on a low level, not on a high duty level. So that would be for the consumers the beneficial solution.
And also talk about the supply chain, because we hear a lot about it, particularly with respect to NAFTA and Canada and Mexico. As you look at your plant down there in South Carolina, when you're up and running fully, what percentage of the parts that you are putting into the cars will come from cross-border, either Mexico or Canada?
It will be the local content is in the first step close to 50% now, but when we have full capacity here, 75% would then be U.S. local and the rest would be imported, and Europe and Mexico will be big supplier markets for us.
And does that mean that you are not as concerned about NAFTA as some auto companies are?
No, I would say we are not going to build cars in Mexico. We will, of course, there are some strong suppliers in Mexico, and of course we would like to buy those parts from them. But I think the trade dispute now going on between Europe and the US and China is a bigger threat for our future.
And how do you see that trade dispute? Because we've heard, for example, from Lloyd Blankfein, who runs Goldman Sachs yesterday, saying that he thinks it's really a matter of negotiation. At least he hopes it's a matter of negotiation, that ultimately the parties will come to terms. Is that your anticipation? I mean, you have a unique position, both as a U.S. manufacturer of cars built here, but also with a Chinese owner.
Yeah, my take is that the China government are fully aware of that they need long-term to have a competition, and their auto industry needs to be competitive on a global market. I also know that there is a big understanding in Europe and also an openness to agree on much lower tariffs on cars and other industrial products. So I really would expect and hope that we can put the prestige aside and then the people sit down and come to a solution where we would have a fair trade with low barriers in both directions. I think that's what we hope, and I think it's also not impossible that would happen.
And finally, Hakan, I want to ask about electric vehicles, because you have set a target, as I understand it, 50% of your sales being electric vehicles by the year 2025. That plant down there in South Carolina, is it capable of making electric vehicles? How many electric vehicles are you going to make there?
Yeah, we have not any investments for that, but that would be rather minor investments. So these factories can build our SPA platform cars, including electrical version, and that will for sure come. And especially second car that we will bring in around 3 years from now, that will also have fully electric versions.